The Ballad of Songbirds and Where to Snake Them. Wait, that can't be right. Um, Let me check my notes. Awkwardly pretending to look at hand as if I wrote something on my hand and pretending also that I can see my hand in the middle of an interview. Review. Nope. Got nothing here. I don't know what this film is called. Oh, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is essentially the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them for the Hunger Games franchise. It's available. You can watch it. You can get it on demand. You do whatever the hell you want with it. Uh, it does have audio description by Deluxe, done by, what was it, Tansy Alexander. Those notes I should have checked before. I'm gonna go with Tansy though on this. Part of me feels like that's not right, but we'll go with it. And yeah, it is. It's out there in the world for everybody now. We can all. I started to read the book and I never finished it. um, Listen. Yeah, it's. I don't mind more Hunger Games. I don't. It's so weird that it's Coriolanus Snow is the protagonist of this story. Like we're the birth of a villain. It's like I'm supposed to sympathize with him, and I'm like, this guy turns out to be Donald Sutherland, and he's a dick, and I don't really care that much. Just um I did care about Lucy, um and Rachel Ziegler does a really great job with Lucy, although not necessarily the Lucy that I was picking up while it was trying to put down. I kind of got a little bit more of an aloof idea from her. She was less of a power ballad singer. Rachel sings her face off in this. It's just redonkulous. Um, and I kind of had the feeling that it would be more like a wispy sort of Amanda Seyfried type of thing, just from the way that she talks in the book. The vibe that I always had was sort of like a little bit of a little bit more indie folk, a little bit more not quite as like holy shit. Rachel Ziegler's voice is a little too holy shit for me. It's great though, but I mean, like when I'm thinking about the role, I was like, damn, she can sing. It's probably the greatest takeaway from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And the funny thing is, almost everything she does is a cappella, and it sounds like she's having to make it up on the spot. So it's like even more of it's even more impressive on her behalf because she's constantly singing unsupported by anything, and just fire. Just her voice is fire. So number one, the winning point of the film, I'll go ahead and tell you, is just Rachel Ziegler singing, followed closely behind by the existence of Rachel Ziegler. The rest of the movie is all right. The guy who plays Coriolanus in this is fine. Tom something, I don't care. I want to say Tom Swift, but I know that's not right because that's the character from. But for purposes of this, I might say Tom Swift again. So, yes. So if you don't know, this is a prequel. This is set way back in the day. This isn't the first Hunger Games though, which would have been way more interesting. This is the 10th Hunger Games. The capital has gone bored with the Hunger Games already in 10 years. Well, perhaps if you had your own citizens who weren't poor inside the capital, like one of the things about the capital by the time you get around to Katniss's Hunger Games is that you never get the sense that anyone who actually resides in the capital is poor. you get some people who like work in the capital, like who've been granted the ability to work for the rich people, but there's something that's very extravagant about the capital. In this world, you have Coriolanus who's like hiding and trying to act like he's rich, but the real world check on this is that if the capital was as great as it is later on down the line, he wouldn't need to do what he does. To he wouldn't need to be scraping by, and his cousin Tigress wouldn't need to help him the way that he does. Finola Flanagan is in this in a thankless role. They dragged her out. They were like, "Come, get over here. I need you to be in the Hunger Games movie." And she's like, "What? Come with us." Damn it. We're hiring you. All right, fine. And he attends a school, which could in itself be interesting. It's not. It's more interesting in the book somewhat, because they actually do more school shit. Pretty much as soon as we get to Coriolanus, you miss the whole like introduction of things. He goes to like this party and there's food and he's trying not to like overeat and to make it look like he's poor, but he really wants this food. Like really bad. And his dean constantly hates him. And one of the weaknesses of the book and of the film is that his dean is just such an instant douchebag to him for no apparent reason whatsoever. They do such a poor job of ever describing why this man hates Coriolanus. He just does. Peter Dinklage plays the headmaster Higginbottom or something. None of these people have realistic names. This guy's basically dropping acid most of the time, and then also trying to act like he's... It's amazing how much Peter Dinklage, to me, though, I gotta say, I'm quite familiar with Peter Dinklage's voice. I'm currently reworking my way through Game of Thrones. And whatever he's doing here is making him sound vaguely like Robert Downey Jr. Like, if Peter Dinklage wanted to, he could hop into What If and play Iron Man. Like, on... like, and do just this little voice here. And I think people would be like, man, that kind of sounds like Robert Downey Jr. This sounds a little bit like it, but I know it's Peter Dinklage. Anyway, Viola Davis is hamming it up in a role that's... she's going hard on this role, I gotta say. Viola Davis goes hard on everything. I got a different vibe out of this role, out of the book, and this role they gave her a little bit more oomph. I don't know what else would. She's a little bit more assured of herself in the decisions and choices that she makes. It feels like she has more power in the movie than she does in the book. Even though she's the game's creator, she always feels like somehow that she's like a kooky scientist that just kind of like walks around behind people. Here, she kind of seems like she's in control of some shit. And that's all right, whatever. It's Viola, and she's doing one heck of a... I think she loves this role. I think she had fun here. And I'm not going to say she does a bad job here. I just, again, the interpretation from book to screen, it's not the vibe that I got, but this movie makes a lot of changes anyway. I didn't hate most of them. I just hate the third act of this film. Which admittedly I didn't finish the book, so maybe this is accurate. We'll get to that. So the first part is all about like introduction and learning what they're assigned to do, which is Coriolanus is assigned to be one of the mentors, as are 23 of his other classmates are all assigned to be mentors. That's their final grade for the semester, is, if they want to be eligible for this prize. I thought when I read the book, and I thought the name Arachne Crane was so fire. I was like, how is this girl with this name in such a small role? Like, Arachne Crane should have her own series. I'm surprised we haven't, somebody didn't come up with that name and go, there's something about this name that just tells me Arachne Crane. Like, that girl could have her own series. The the wonderful stories of Arachne Crane. Like, I feel like it rolls off the tongue in somebody created that name and deserves an award. Except they used it in like the shittiest role. She's one of the least featured mentors. Um instead we get Plinth. Whatever. Anyway, as one of them, he's the what the hell is his first name? He's the kid that grew up in one of the districts, but his family got incredibly rich and bought their way into the capital. So he's like, is the equivalent of Hunger Games version of a half-blood. They treat him like that. They're like, ew, he's one of the district kids. like there's some stigma, you know. And of course he feels a whole kind of different about the Hunger Games because could have been him had his parents not managed to amass a fortune to buy their way into the capital. Could have been him, you know, in the reaping. But capital kids don't get reaped, and instead they go to fancy schools and then become mentors of those who are reaped. So yeah, he ends up trying to be a mentor to a kid who obviously hates him because they end up putting him as a mentor for his own district. It's this whole thing. Janus, that's his name, Sir Janus Plinth. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a side character story for you. Coriolanus is given what they assume is the worst of the worst, and once again it's District 12. Once again it's the female from District 12. Because this is the least inventive franchise ever. So they have to draw a direct comparison to Katniss Everdeen in order for you to like a character. God forbid we learn something else about a different district. It has to be the same girl, you know, the same position from the same district, in order for this to work. Ridiculous. Anyway, that was something I thought was weird. It was stupid about the story too. I was like, come on now. You have 12 districts. And while we acknowledge that some of them produce higher quality contenders, and maybe that's not fun to watch the Coriolanus get paired up with a badass, there are other districts. It would be nice to see maybe somebody from, I don't know, 11, 10, you know, what's going on there? 9, 8, any one of the other lower districts. Anyway, yeah, so he gets Lucy and he decides he wants to win this prize because I think there's a cash reward that's attached to it if he wins, but it's an uphill battle for him because, again, for no reason whatsoever, presumably, his dean just really, really fucking hates him. I mean, like, aggressively so. And it's not just like he's a dick to all of the students. He is a dick to Coriolanus. Just like the one kid. He's like, I love everybody but this kid in front of me. This kid is God. It's like he knows this kid is going to grow up and ruin everything. There's not much mentoring that goes on here because we have to make room for the third act of the film. So we have to move the first act along really fast. So some of the scenes that worked well for me in the book, I don't even remember. There's a character that gets taken out at the zoo, I should say. That I was like, was this in the book? Like, did they combine that? Because I don't remember that scene at all. But one of the best parts of the book was Janus trying to hand out sandwiches, and you know, Lucy always acted as like with like none of the other kids wanted to talk to anybody. So it was always Lucy was the one, because Coriolanus had introduced himself, so she would talk to Coriolanus, and then she would end up getting some of the other kids to talk to their mentors and to accept things like food. Because for the most part, all of the other kids hated being there, and there's some really young ones that were like upset and crying. And I don't remember that there was a kid that was missing part of his arm in the book. Again, made it about halfway. That's featured here, and they do mention in the audio description that they picked a kid who is physically handicapped. Obviously, because in the districts, they're not getting, nobody has money for prosthetics, so he's just missing part of his arm. I don't know what to say about this. It has some upsides. Most of them are Rachel Ziegler. I've also seen some reviews that were like, I thought Rachel Ziegler was boring. I was like, I thought Rachel Ziegler was the only thing that I actually cared about in this film. It's hard to care about Coriolanus. It's not that Tom Brady doesn't do a good job. I'm just gonna pick different Toms. That's all I'm gonna do. In the role, it's Coriolanus Snow. It's never really going to. It's not going to be a role that you're really going to be like, oh, I really hope things work out for him, because when things work out for him, you know what it leads to. So it's really hard to root for him, because if he gets what he wants, eventually it leads him on the trajectory to where he is in the Hunger Games. So, but then at the same time, you also don't want to sympathize with him. So seeing people be a dick to him doesn't work either, because then you're like, well, he was made a dick by other people who were abusive to him and mean to him, and he was forged in fire, and that's how he became an asshole, and as we know him in the Hunger Games. So it doesn't work. None of it ever works, because you can't be sympathetic to him. And it's not. You also don't want to see bad things happen to him, because then you don't want to feel like there's a justification for what he later does. His character is just the wrong character. Janus would have been a much better protagonist for this, with Coriolanus in the background, because with Janus being from the districts and then living in the capital and seeing what he could do, that would have been much better. And Coriolanus could have been in the background, could have had co-leads. Since technically Hunger Games always tried to bring along Liam Hemsworth for the ride. Like, hey, look, no, it's really about 3 people. It's not just about Katniss and Peeta. We've got him too. He's coming along, right? Gail, are you coming? Yeah, I'm here. So they could have at least tried to balance it a little bit more with Janus, but they don't really do that. It's clearly Coriolanus' story from his perspective. He's the one with a cousin. He's the one with a grandmother. He's the one with, it's just, he's the one that's getting abused by Dinklage. It all feels like it's about him, which it's going to be the thing that puts you off from the film. And because unlike other films and other franchises where we take a hero or take a villain and then kind of pull them away from being a villain, that's a redemption arc. This is like the opposite of a redemption arc. He used to be normal and then he becomes evil, and those stories are way less fun. Watching somebody who used to be evil learn to be good is somehow rewarding. When you watch Negan's trajectory on The Walking Dead, for example, or how we've decided to make Venom a hero for Sony's Marvel series. That is sort of an afterthought. It's not the birth of this character who still needs to then destroy the world. It works on different levels for different reasons. Echo is another great example, because it takes place after she was a villain and she's breaking away from being a villain. So this is the opposite, and it just doesn't work. It's really hard to get into this. Rachel Ziegler does pull me in as much as she can, and did most of the reason why I did like this movie a little bit. Um, was because of Rachel Ziegler, and I always find it engaging, these kids that play the Hunger Games. Every once in a while you see somebody who played in the Hunger Games who goes on to have a career. An example would be Rue, you know, just little Rue from the first film. Now she's out acting on her own. I think a lot of people forget Alan Ritchson was in Catching Fire. He was, and now he's Reacher. So it's entirely possible one of these guys is in who isn't even Rachel Ziegler goes on to do great things. So it's interesting to sort of watch that. But the design, I put this on. I'm putting this on like costume design because I think that's probably where the strength in the production design. If I had to be like, where did I think this goes? It'd be like production design, costume design, maybe like the two things. Because to create an earlier version of the Hunger Games that looks distinct, that looks really different than the later version, it's probably the hardest thing to do here. But yeah. I don't know. It's divisive. I don't know that everybody's going to love it. And I don't really know what the purpose of it is. I think they would have just done a lot better trying to create a different story with a different character and focusing on the 25th Hunger Games or the 20th Hunger Games or just any random. It doesn't need to be with Coriolanus. You could pick out any Hunger Games and any story and just tell someone's story and see how that works out. I think that would work out a lot better because then we wouldn't be drawn to our lead being an ass in the future. So, audio description wise, yeah, good job. This Hunger Games goes hard when it goes hard. They don't quite have the same arena that Katniss had, where she could just hide easily or run off into the nice. This is just a lot more. It feels rougher for some reason. It feels underdeveloped. So things here are, the violence is a little bit more brutal, and that's the Hunger Games for you. I wonder if we'll get like a Maze Runner prequel or something. Twilight. How Edward became a vampire. I don't know, something. Maybe we'll just keep releasing more versions of things like this for franchises. Keep trying to breathe life into them, but this was misguided, and it was when it was a book too. I get the need, but this is the wrong way to do it. So I'm gonna give Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes a C+, largely because Rachel Ziegler and her singing are awesome, and I don't want that to be reflected negatively. I'm honestly just, the best parts of this movie are when I'm sitting there listening to Rachel Ziegler sing. So, and Viola Davis and Peter Dinklage and Jason Schwartzman all did really good job, really good work here. Honestly, I don't have a problem with any of the acting, but I just have a problem with the structure of the film. And the third act is fucking dreadful. Just absolutely, just terrible. I would just end. Literally, when it says, when you see the word pop up on your screen, Peacemaker, just turn it off. Just, it's so boring. The third act of this film is so boring, and it just goes on for so long. Oh my god. Just, I know they're like, they're trying to be like, but we have to finish the story. We have to connect it. There's an end to the book, and oh my god, no, 3 minutes. That's all you needed. That just shrink that. Don't make it a new chapter. My god. Yeah, it would have made the film way shorter, way more interesting. Honestly, I probably would have, if there was no third act to this film, and there was maybe just like an extra 3 minutes at the end of Act 2, a B. I'd probably give this film a B, to be totally honest. But that third act is just absolutely dreadful. It's one of the worst singular chunks of film from this past year. It's so horrifically awful in the opposite direction of where the rest of the film went. It just takes it in this boring, boring direction. And you don't know why. You're like, why do you want to finish on this? Why are we finishing this direction? This is so slow. My God. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please click that subscribe button. Website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. Exercise their Instagram at MacTheMovieGuy. Audio description project, adp.acb.org. And the ADNA, that's the ADNA.org. Let you know more about Tansy and what else she has described before. Anyway, thanks for sitting through this. Watch another film and see you guys on the other side.